Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Frostie and Flake show. It's been a minute, buddy.
It has. Life tends to make things take a minute or two, but we're back, and that's what matters, right?
That is, in fact, what matters. It's been a while since we've been on. Lots of shit has happened, but we're not going to go over everything that's happened in the past couple weeks. Um, but I kind of wanted to start off right away, Flake. You've been playing some pretty crazy card games recently. Uh,
Yes. So I've sort of been diversifying my portfolio, so to speak. Essentially, it's just there's so many interesting card games out there that are either in their infancy and alpha stages to stuff that is still developing and evolving, and trying to establish a firm footprint on the grid, as they say. So I've been playing a lot of a card game called Mythgard, and I know that you were in my stream the other day, kind of taking a look, and I don't know if you've played this way long ago, right?
yeah, I got a beta code to it a long time ago. I think it was like an old Eternal streamer that I used to hang around with who got into it, and I got into the Discord and got a key to start playing the closed beta.
Yeah. So that's where they're at now. They're actually in the alpha. They're still in quote unquote
Or
alpha.
alpha, yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting because it's been, from what I hear, I'm kind of hearing uh, conflicting timelines. But they say that the game's been around between like 6 months to a year already, and they're coming in out of alpha next week and going into closed beta a week after that. So they're going to do a big revamp and then go out of it. But it's a really, really damn cool game, at least from my perspective. I've consumed a plethora of different card games over 20 years. And to me, this is one of the cooler ones in the sense that it takes a lot of the best elements of other games and boils them down to what that game is. So you kind of have a combat system that's very Hearthstone like. You have a mana system that's sort of reminiscent of Magic, minus there's no lands in a sense, but the cards themselves can be basically cycled back into your deck to create access to that land.
Right.
And in terms of combat, the combat looks like Hearthstone, but it's very lane specific. So moving and strategically placing creatures on the board and moving them around becomes part of the deal as well. So it's very easy to pick up. And I'll just plug, I have a tutorial video out for it if you guys want to check it out, youtube.com/Flake Media. There's a tutorial video out for it for beginners, like going in from scratch. But it's so exceptionally difficult to master. And it's a card game where I myself have been only playing it for about a week and doing so free to play. And my janky builds of uncommons, commons, and select rares are beating decks that have tons of mythics, tons of rares in them, because it's a matter of a better player will beat the expensive deck piloted by a worse player, so to speak. It's
Sure.
always, yeah, it comes down to whoever is the better player at the end of the day will win more often than not. I mean, there are cards that are more powerful than others. And I mean, you've played the game. I don't know when you stopped, but at where it's at right now, it feels really good in terms of the combat system, the mana system, and just the fairness. There's a good amount of recovery that's available in the deck or in the game, but it also rewards aggressive play. It rewards control play, and it's very difficult to pilot a 3-color deck because you really have to sit back and plan out your economy as you go. I'm really, really
Right.
into it.
They don't have any sort of like, from what I remember, there was no like dual lands or anything like
No,
that. There's no dual
they have.
colored.
So yeah, so basically the way that you access a quote unquote land or have a land at your disposal, a mana at your disposal, is you take one of your cards, your spells or your creatures, and you burn them, meaning you essentially shuffle it back into your deck, and then you have that color at your disposal. There are 2-color creatures, but each of them only burns for a specific color, so you cannot have like dual color lands or whatever. But again, it comes down to it. If you're planning your way up, having 3 colored spells you want to play means you have to burn 3 of those colors to get there. So it's difficult to actually get there if you're playing 2 or 3 colors, because then you're locking yourself and you're really pigeonholing yourself into one mana block versus another. Like I said, it's very complex, but a beginner can pick it up and really find value out of it because it has a lot of familiar elements from other popular card games.
Did you ever play a game called Soul Forge?
I never have. I've heard of it. I just know nothing of it, but I've heard it mentioned for sure.
Yeah, it's another lane-based like card game similar to Mythgard. I don't remember Soul Forge having a mana system though. I think there was like a almost a Hearthstone style system where you can only play a 1 mana card on 1, a 2 mana card on 2, a 3 mana card on 3. You know, you had to wait to play higher cost cards. Mm-hmm. But like lane based is interesting. I think the big thing that I remember from playing Mythgard was you couldn't attack directly unless like both sides were clear, right?
Correct.
Like if you had a creature on either side of the space you needed to attack, you had to attack the creature.
Yeah, I mean, and there's ways around that because certain creatures have different keywords. Like there's a keyword called agile, meaning that in any of the 3 lanes ahead of it, like the lane is straight ahead or the 2 diagonal from it, if any of those lanes are clear, it can funnel through and go and attack face.
Gotcha.
However, you're right. If there's any one creature blocking that way, it will block that lane. So it depends. Some people play very fast and furious and very evasive. Like they'll play a lot of cheap creatures with agile, and their whole shtick is to just slam down as many creatures as possible and find the holes in your defenses and just go right through. I, as a control player at heart,
okay.
well, I mean, I'm a control player, mid-range to control style player, and I just play a lot of anti-aggro early game and then just kind of shove it right back in their face late game. But I mean, the game is worth looking into. It's called Mythgard. You guys can check it out. And that has been what's sort of taken a lot of my focus in the past week and a half or so, up until, I guess, the Gwent patch that was released today.
Yeah, great segue into that, actually. Is this the patch that you've been waiting for to reignite your love of Gwent?
So and this is what I should probably clear up. It's not that I don't have a love for Gwent or that it's fizzled out or that it's gone. The love is still there. I feel that in the giant market of card games, Gwent stands as a very unique and different option for people to play. It's a game that doesn't have a life total. There's no attacking face. It is, you play 1 card per turn, alternating turns. Right. There's no interrupts. There's no nothing like that. It's a very chess-like type card game, and I adore that because, again, there's no aggro or in that style because you can't flood a board and go face. It's not like that. This patch here that was released was done because there was obviously balances that needed to be done. They introduced a new faction back at the end of June, and it wasn't exactly the best thing. Like most things that come out. And another common perpetrator to this is Overwatch. When a new hero comes out, it's usually overtuned like crazy. Yeah. And so they have to sort of scale it back and figure that out. So what they do is that when that comes out, they will when the new faction came out, they had to go back, dive in, and resettle a lot of things, including buffing another faction that was at the bottom tier for a long time, and that in itself made everything out of whack. And then they had to release a new patch, which came out today, which in my opinion, I played about 5 hours or so today with, janky type stuff. And it felt okay. I mean, again, it's really in its infancy, but it's really difficult to balance a game like that. And I hope that it's good. A lot of it was also cosmetic fixes and sort of plans down the future.
Sure.
But I have high hopes for it, and it's going to be released on mobile, hopefully by the end of this year, if I'm not mistaken.
I did see that demo, yeah, that it was playing on iOS.
Yeah, they're going to be releasing it on iOS. Their entire game plan was to have that done by the end of the year, and I hope that's still the case. but they've already postponed their major tournament from that was supposed to happen in June. They postponed it until September, so I'm going to leave for Poland in next week
Right.
to go cast that tournament. And I mean, on the grand scheme of things, I played this morning and it was great. There was a brand new meta, there was brand new cards, but at the same time, I don't like to drop an assessment or a verdict on it until it's kind of simmered down. The problem is that you have a tournament in 2 weeks with a whole bunch of patch changes, and I think they changed something like probably about 40 or 50 cards. They changed, yeah. Well, this and that. So they changed cards at the end of July. They changed over 200 cards in July, at the beginning of July.
Good Lord.
This time they changed another 40 to 50. And now you're out of time, right? I mean, the tickets are booked, the competitors are locked in. So
that's a lot of cards to just like now are we talking like they're +1 on their cost or -1 on their cost?
Yeah.
We're talking like
a lot of it was just the tweaking and the fine tuning, right? I mean, and you see a lot of it sometimes in Hearthstone. They just came out with another wave of nerfs and buffs, but
I stopped playing because of it.
Well, that's the thing, and you only get about 3 or 4 different cards that maybe get hit every 2 or 3 months. This was a wide sweep, and what they're trying to do, I think, is they're actually just going from faction to faction. And if you picture this in Hearthstone, they're going class to class, in Magic color to color, and going through it and saying, what do we need to work on that is not getting played or that is severely underpowered or undertuned, and giving it a little bit of a little steroid injection to get it going. They did that with one faction, and that faction became tier 1 meta crushing. 40 to 50% of the meta was this one faction.
Yeah.
Where people were like, you guys fucking blew it. Like, you guys went way too ham on this. So now they're kind of looking at other factions and saying, well, we're looking at boosting up other stuff. And that's what they kind of did with this patch, was they went and injected all the other factions with a little bit of steroids to sort of get them a little bit back to a playable level.
That's so insane to me. Like,
well, and for myself as a caster / analyst for this game, it's difficult because you've sort of gone from knowing the game inside out. So prior to their 6th faction release in June, I had hit whatever quote unquote legend mythic in that game with jank decks like homebrews in April, May, and June. I was top 500 player in the world from those 3 seasons up until then. July rolls around, new faction comes out. It's a nightmare. And I stopped playing because I'm like, you guys figure this out. After that, it just kind of progressed from there, and it became a little bit more of, well, I don't know what's happening, because do I study this meta? Do I keep track of it? Do I play it and know it? If you just announce that it's going to get changed at the end of the month anyway. So for me, it's frustrating because now literally the patch was released this morning. I fly out in about 8 or 9 days to go to Poland to cast the tournaments. So I have less than 2 weeks to study the meta and get caught up on the game, it's difficult. I can do it. I have confidence I can do it. I'm just going to play a lot and study a lot, but like, it's tough, man. And I feel for the competitors. Imagine the competitors who got qualified for this.
That's the pain in the ass part about playing like the digital only games, right? Where like, all right, I got my shit down. Like, I know what I'm playing. I know how to play it. I know the matchups all across the board. August 30th, 50 cards are changed. Half your shit doesn't work anymore, and when you have a tournament in a couple weeks, you're just like, wait a minute. You got to analyze it and be able to cast it, but now I got to be able to fucking play.
Yeah.
Like, and actually try and win a tournament that it's basically brand new, especially when you're changing that amount of cards. Because it's not like, because Gwent doesn't have the same thing that, say, like Hearthstone and Magic have to deal with, where there are cards that are not balanced for constructed play, they're balanced for limited play. There are cards in Hearthstone that are meant to be played in Arena, right? Like the 4 or 5 vanilla creatures for 4 type of thing. And Magic has their actual draft sealed power level cards. Gwent doesn't have any of that as far as I'm aware, right?
They have an Arena, but they don't necessarily release cards for Arena, let's say. Like, there's no cards where you're like, Oh, that's an arena card. Like you said, there are cards like the 6/7 ogre in
Right.
Hearthstone, right? Like you draft that because you need a big boy that's hard to remove, and removals is difficult. Like murder in Magic is an insta pick in a draft or in a
Sure.
sealed or whatever. But in any other format, you're not going to play it because there's so much better removal that you can play.
Right.
On that note, and that's the case. There is none of that. And what's funny about this is these players that qualified for this tournament in September, they qualified back in like the winter, early spring. So they have gone through 2 or 3 balance patches and major changes since they qualified for this tournament. They have prepared like 3 times for under different metas and different card pools since for this tournament that now is occurring in 2 weeks. And trust me, I'm glad it's occurring, and it's not like they're just tossing around. It's $100,000 tournament. It's a big freaking tournament.
That's
right?
a lot of money.
That's a lot of cabbage, man. Like that's why a lot of the people whom I've spoken to who are qualified with the tournament, like the teams as well, who are practicing. I asked them, I'm like, can I sit in on some of your matches? Like, when you're practicing, I just want to see how you practice, see some of the stuff that you guys are doing. It's obviously it's off the record, and when I would never repeat it, obviously,
Sure.
Competitive integrity and whatnot. But I'm like, when do you guys plan on starting to practice? They're like, oh, the patch dropped at 6 this morning. We were practicing at 6:01 this morning. Like we're playing 10 hours a day until that. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's a time crunch because the patch released today and the tournament's in 2 weeks. So
yeah, you don't have a whole lot of time to actually like grind out games and practice. Because like in Magic, you never have to really worry about that. Once it sets out, it sets out. Only thing you have to worry about is like a ban, and even then, like as we recently saw, like Hoag. We'll wait till after the biggest tournament of the year to ban it. No big deal.
yeah.
So
well, that would have been difficult, right? If you banned that prior to something. Imagine that was banned. They just put out the ban, a couple days prior to that. All these people who qualified for these tournaments with these particular decks. That's one thing I got to ask you. If you qualify for this tournament, can you bring a different deck, or do you have to bring the deck you qualified with?
For like Magic?
Yeah, I'm not even sure about that.
Oh no, they're all separate entities.
Okay,
so,
I wasn't
you
sure.
you could qualify, like the people who qualify with Hoag, like at the Magic Fest this past week. They qualified for a Mythic Championship. That championship may be in a different format, maybe in Standard, and it's gonna have different sets. It'll probably be close to rotation. So yeah, it's entirely separate. And Magic players really don't have to worry about like emergency bannings. There hasn't been an emergency banning in like I don't know, fucking 20 years.
So what is an emergency? I just want to ask you this because you've been in this circle for a while now, a lot longer than I have. An emergency ban, what would warrant an emergency ban?
An emergency ban, the last one that happened was a card called Memory Jar. Memory Jar, a 5-mana artifact. You can crack it, and you set your current hand aside. You draw 7. At the end of your turn, you discard whatever's in your hand and return what you put away. So you kind of just like, it's basically draw 7.
Okay.
And it fueled a combo deck that could win on turn 1. I remember vividly dying to this in an FNM. I was 10. And I remember dying to Academy, and an emergency banning was basically the card had just been printed. I think it lasted less than 2 weeks.
Oh wow!
From sets released, here's Urza's Saga. Oh shit! 2 weeks later, like Hammer comes down, Memory Jar is gone. What they did at the time was, if you owned Memory Jars, you could send them back to Wizards of the Coast, and they would send you a pack of Urza's Saga. so you could trade in the banned card.
Interesting.
But that's a warrant of an emergency ban is basically like an oh shit, this is gonna ruin our format for the next 3 months, or we don't because BNR announcements, ban and restricted announcements, they only happen I think every like 2 months or so. Like
I think when was the last one? I think everybody was it just after War of the Spark came out.
Well, the most recent BNR was Monday.
Right, for Osidon and all that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but prior to that, was the one where everybody was kind of. I think a lot of people were kind of on the.
We're hoping Teferi would get banned.
Yeah, and no dice on that one.
No, he's not that bad. But yeah, so the recent BNR announcement, obviously Hoag getting banned in Modern. I don't know if you follow any Modern stuff at all.
I know of Hoag, and the reason why was because there's a lot of people making not a stink about it, but bringing up the conversations regarding Hoag and the fact that he was. First of all, what tipped me off was when they released a top cards that appeared at X tournament, and the top 9 of 10 were pretty much all the staples for Hoag decks, and all the comments were, well, it's just a Hoag deck, so that card was there, And then I remember reading an article prior to the ban. I remember someone was saying, did the math, and he said you can get a turn 2 Hoag 47% of the time with this list. And
actually more than that.
Is it?
It was Frank Karsten wrote an article for Channel Fireball. 62% of the time, you can get Hoag on turn 2.
Okay, or something like that, which is just absurd.
It's insane.
Yeah, and he's like, you play this into this into this, and based on, he's like, you have to aggressively mulligan for whatever. You play this into this into this. Hoag turn 2, you're good to go. At least in X amount of times. He's like, I ran 10,000 simulations, and this is how many times I can get it out based on that. It's like, dear Lord, and Hogak's he's a 9/9
He's an 8/8 with trample.
Yeah. So what are you gonna do, right? Unless you, what can, I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, is there was really nothing you could do, because even if you kill it, he just comes back the next turn. You'd have to exile him. Or play a card like Leyline of the Void or something like that, where you could actually just blast the whole graveyard all at once.
Yeah.
Players were main decking Leyline of the Void because of Hoag being so prominent.
Right.
I remember, I think it was one tournament where it was 22% of the field was Hoag.
Which is insane, given the fact that this is Modern, which has decades of pool to sort of draw from, right?
Yeah, it's pretty nutty, when you think about it. And we can get into some serious shit with that. One thing I did want to talk about before we get into all the Magic stuff that happened, because there's a lot of it, and the majority of the show is going to be about Magic. Have you ever played a game called Cards with a K?
No.
Okay,
I have not.
In your experimentation of different card games,
like college, yeah.
If you ever have a chance to try it out, I would love your opinion on it, because I played a bit of it during closed alpha before it hit Steam. It didn't even have a freaking icon on the desktop. Called Cards with a K. It's on Steam. It's free to play. It is a World War II based card game.
Okay.
And the factions are, of course, the countries that were involved in World War II. It is a 2-lane game, so you have a front lane and a back lane, basically what they call a front line and reserve line. And you have tanks, infantry, aircraft. I think there is naval, but not that I quite remember. And it plays very similar to a Hearthstone would, where things have health that get lowered over time, damage stays on. There's abilities like haste, flying, trample, all that kind of stuff. And your life total is your headquarters for whatever country you're playing. And it was super interesting to me to play. I couldn't stream it because they had requested that we don't stream it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but now that it is free to play, it's out on Steam. I think you can actually stream it now. I would love for you, even if you don't stream it, just check it out.
I will check it out. It seems interesting. What always strikes me is part of the appeal of card games is just sort of the theme or the realm of which they draw their inspiration from. Where for Gwent, it's The Witcher. For Magic, it's the Wizards of the Coast, the Magic universe, and which I guess is where it's chicken or egg. The card game spawned that universe.
Yeah.
Hearthstone is like Warcraft in that era, and Mythgard is kind of like a cyberpunk meets Greek Norse mythology kind of mix up thing.
There's some weird stuff in Mythgard.
Yeah, like there's a giant flying serpent snake wrapped around like a Boeing 747 or something. It's like what. Anyways, but like this one being a World War II kind of thing,
Yes.
or is it World War I or whatnot? I mean, interesting, I guess. I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to what the game mechanics are. But I'm a history guy. I like history, so I would definitely check it out. Are any of the cards? They're all like factually accurate in terms.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, they are actual like tank models, airplane models, infantry. Like everything is 100%. And one of the key mechanic of it is controlling the front line. So if there's summoning sickness in the game, unless a creature has haste, is basically like you play it into the back row, and then it has to move up to the front row.
Okay.
But whatever it costs to play it, it also costs to move it. So every turn you get, like, I think it's called gold in the game. Your mana. You're basically spending money as they did to put to field units and field armor and everything. So you're spending money to put something into play, and then you're spending money to move it into the front line.
Okay.
And then once it's in the front line, then it can actually attack. So there's lots of like, it's a little bit slower than a regular card game would be, but from when I was playing, the Snowball Effect is huge. Because once you're in the front line and you no longer have to worry about getting to the front line, then you can just play units in the back and just kind of move them up as you want.
Right.
And then there's like aircraft don't have to worry about going into the front line; they can attack from the back row. There's artillery that can attack from the back row. So there's reminiscent of the Versus card game that I used to play, which was DC and Marvel.
I remember that card game. Yeah. That card game, I played it maybe once or twice from a basic standpoint. I almost went out and spent like a couple $100 on like all kinds of cards and boxes of it and such. Because do you own the paper version?
I did. I don't think I own it anymore.
Yeah.
I owned a lot of it.
That's the one game where I played it and I was interested in it, but I never really dove in. Usually if I like something, I'll just I'd be like, yeah, eBay is around. Let's go and get everything for it.
Yeah, and my friends and I used to just play it like on our own. They don't make the cards anymore, like the game's
No. Yeah.
But it was a fun game that had it in my opinion, it solved the resource problem that every card game has. Magic has, you have to draw land, you have to play one land per turn, right? But the WoW card game tried to solve it by saying, okay, you can play any card face down as a land, but you still only draw one card per turn.
Right.
So eventually you have to decide whether I want to play a land or play a card. But Versus, you drew 2 cards per turn, and you got to play any card face down as a land. So you always drew a land, and you always drew a spell.
Right.
Every turn.
Okay.
And then there were some factions in Versus that actually played from the resource row. The Avengers, for instance, like they had an ability called Recruit, that if it was face down as a land, you could pay its flip cost, and then it becomes a creature.
Okay, gotcha.
So there was a lot of stuff in Versus that, like, they fixed a lot of the card game issues.
Right.
But
have I ever talked to you about the game Battletech?
No. Like the little like miniatures game?
No, not quite. They had a card game for it. I think they released like the core set and then 1 or 2 expansions maybe. This was a game that came out after Magic, and it was made by Richard Garfield. This was like
it died immediately.
Well, it kind of did, but there was a lot of the
#artifact.
The attacking was a little bit more refined and complex, because if the creatures, which were mechs, had speed ratings. So if a faster mech was attacking, you could choose I attack this, and if it was slower, it had to defend. It was attacking it. That said, what it did to fix the resource issue, and like you said, the resources seems to always be what hinders a card game or will either haunt it for the rest of its life, like Magic does. A lot of people are always just crapping all over Magic because the land system.
Yeah.
In this case, what it did was it was a similar thing. It had 5 different uh, resource types, and they weren't colors, but it was like one of them was logistics, one of them was like armory, one of them was politics, another one was whatever, whatever, whatever. Every mech that you played or every card that you played had 2 costs. It had its cost if you had access to whatever you needed.
Uh-huh.
So, for instance, if you have access to a politics and access to a logistics, it's tap those 2 plus 3 additional, and you can pay it. But let's say you got land screwed and you never drew any politics. It had a what was like a tax. So it's like you can pay 1 and 1 plus 3 of anything, so a total of 5, or 7 to play it outright. So you were never screwed. Not to mention you were able to sort of play any card face down and pay for it over time. So if you were screwed with large creatures or minions or large mechs in this case, and you just like, okay, well, I'll play it upside down, like face down, tap these 2 lands and put 2 counters on it. So you're kind of paying for it over time. But the cool part about it was that that was called like your construction yard. Your construction yard could be attacked by your opponent. So if he's faster than you, he can go after what you're building and destroy those cards before they're made. So it was an interesting thing, and it really required some balance. But it was one of those things where if your opponent was sort of sitting back, and you could also build things as well. And then as new sets came out, they created traps where it's like, put this in your construction yard with counters on it, so you think your opponent would think that you're building something. And it's like, when
my trap card.
exactly. And it's like, if your opponent attacks this, deal 6 damage to that mech or whatever. It was a phenomenal card game. It was a really, really strategic card game. And again, like most card games, it just kind of fizzled out, and then they created broken elements to it and whatnot. But anyways, it's one of those rip this game because it no longer exists. But I have a shoebox full of them. So if ever you want to come over, man, like I'll teach you all kinds of games that no longer exist.
Yeah. It's like, look at this dead game. That's definitely how we felt with the Versus, because I played it when it first came out, and it was great. It had a Pro Tour and everything, and then eventually they stopped the Pro Tour. They were just like, I'm not gonna do it anymore. We're gonna keep making sets, but fuck the professional side of it.
Yeah, it's we're bleeding money, so
yeah, and the game just died almost immediately after that. But a bunch of my friends started picking it up years later, absolutely years after they stopped making it entirely. And we saw it on the shelf, like at our LGS, super discounted. Like a box was like $5.
Oh, yeah.
We were like,
easy.
fuck it, like whatever, we'll just buy it. And so we bought everything they had as far as the Versus game goes. And we just started playing it on our own. But for whatever reason, the owner of our LGS was like, oh, people are buying this now, I'm gonna order more. And then just like restock their shelves with this, and we're like, fuck, we don't care.
Yeah,
like, we're not buying it anymore. So now it's still sitting there to this day. But yeah, card games kind of live and die, and it sucks when you find one that you really enjoy that eventually just kind of goes away. I know there's so many games that come out of Japan when it comes to card games. Card Fight Vanguard is one of them. Force of Will is another one. I know the Final Fantasy card game is currently ongoing. So many paper card games that just kind of, they're there. Maybe you buy some of them and then they fucking go away.
Well, the whole Battletech thing was the reason why I got into it, was because I bought a computer game in like the early 2000s, like where in that card game it was a Battletech mech game, like Mech Warrior type game.
Yeah.
And in it, in the this was back when you bought a computer game from Best Buy or whatever the equivalent was, off a shelf in a big box. Yeah, and you had the CD-ROM in it, and in that box was a pack of cards for Battletech. And I opened it, I'm like, cool, what the fuck is this? I have no idea. And then
good marketing.
Yeah, it was, but I never bought the cards after that. I literally only started playing and buying the cards like 15 years later. It was like 2012, and I was like, I still have this pack of cards that I opened them and I saw them, but I still had the 11 cards in a drawer. And I just eBayed them. Like, it's like, oh, guy's selling 500 cards for $10. It's like, sold. Let's get the rulebook too off of PDF and figure it out.
I'll tell you the number one game that I'm so sad is gone. It was not even a card game. They had cards in it. It was called Pirates of the Caribbean. This was long before the movies. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying before that. So the game was called Pirates, and I think the base set was called Pirates of the Caribbean. But you bought packs of cards, and in them would be like these sort of plastic pop-out ships. So you could pop out pieces of a ship out of a card. Say you bought like it had the what was stupid Davy Jones's ship called?
The Red Rocket. I don't know. I honestly have no idea
what the Flying Dutchman. That's what it's called, Flying Dutchman.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you had a card for the Flying Dutchman, and then you could pop out the pieces of it and build a little 3D model of the ship. And then you had maps, like just grid-based maps.
Yeah.
And that was the game. You had your ships. You built a fleet based off of like a point system, so similar to Warhammer. Like, okay, Flying Dutchman is 1,200 points. We're playing a 2,000 point game, or whatever. There's this. There were cards for crew members, so you could have a captain and whatever. And say the Flying Dutchman had 6 cannons.
Okay.
So if you attacked another ship, you had to get into actual like broadside range.
Right.
They had a cone range on them that came with the card.
Oh man, this is so cool.
This game was fucking amazing. And you would roll 6 dice because you had 6 cannons. And each cannon has a number that you had to beat if it hit.
Right, okay.
And you dealt whatever damage.
So it's like I rolled 6 die or 6 dice, like I got 4 or greater on 3 of the dice. Right. So you're taking this much damage.
Yep. It was.
Oh, that's not. That sounds like
fun,
like Warhammer. Or have you ever played HeroClix?
Yeah, dude. On my shelf right now.
Yeah,
I have the entire Street Fighter set.
Yeah, that was. I have like a bunch of the Marvel ones. HeroClix was one of those games where I'm like, this is the chess that I wish I could play every day. It was so good, but the problem was like the people that I played with. Not that they didn't like it, but it took a while and there was a lot of setup and they just weren't keen on being like, well, I just want to play like a quick game of, whatever, of Magic for like 15 minutes. I don't want to sit here for 2 hours. And then you have the one friend who goes and buys like, the Cosmic Spidey for like $20. So it's funny you should say Cosmic Spidey. When I got into the game, it was because a buddy of mine was way into it. And I remember going to his place and playing, and he introduced me to it and this and that. And as I bought some collections online, like some commons and uncommons and stuff like that. And as I was going, he was telling me, I'm like, what are some of like the more broken cards, or figures or whatever? Clicks. Yeah. And he's like, okay. He's like, there was this one card there's this one piece called Cosmic Spidey where he would essentially like phase into a wall and then like fire out the wall, so that what people would have to do would break the wall down to get to him. Yeah. So kind of a broken strategy. I
think he had run and gun, and he had like 1 or 2 other abilities on like his first dial that just made him absurd. But he was your whole army. Yeah. If you were playing like, I think it was like a 1,500 point game or something, like he was the entire thing.
Yeah. There was some really, really, really cool stuff with that. And then you have your X-Men faction, your Avengers faction, and they had faction bonuses and whatnot, and so many different. It's like, well, this has a black sort of outline on the color, and this has a green outline on the color. This is a gold outline, and they all mean different things. And oh my lord, I still have a duffel bag full of these things.
It's funny you should mention HeroClix in this because WizKids made both Pirates and HeroClix.
Oh, did they? So they had it all down. So I just pictured. Okay, just one question about the Pirates thing. You're saying that you'd open packs of cards and you'd punch out the pieces. Yep. Was every pack, did it contain all the pieces for one particular ship, or did you have to collect those over different packs?
Each card contained a whole ship.
Oh, okay, I get you.
Yeah. So you no matter what, you always had the ship. But it was just super cool, man. You had so many different things. You got to be able to build the little stupid ship. You had the cards. You had the crew. history figures like what was her name, Anne Bonny,
Hmm.
and her ship. They had so many different sets over time. I remember the original one was Pirates of the Caribbean, and then they did like I think it was like Curse of the Sea that had like the Kraken and stuff in it. But anyway, the whole point of the game, it was a war game, but it was also like a not really capture the flag. It was more like a point game.
Right.
So on the map, you placed islands randomly around, and then each island would contain a certain amount of gold. And the whole point was to travel to the islands, grab all the gold, and get them back to your base.
Okay. And then at the same time, your opponent's kind of either trying to beat you there or go do their own thing or intercept what you're doing.
Right.
And okay, very
And
cool.
you could, if you won a fight, you could take all their gold that was on their ship. So, like, it was kind of a cool like objective based game with war elements, and you had history there. They did I remember they did Barbary Coast for like Corsairs and stuff. They did I forget what the set was called, but it was like it was the Asian pirates uh with forget what their ships were called. Their ships were called something specific, and they looked super cool. And they did one for the movies. Obviously, like over time, they eventually did. You had Captain Jack and the Black Pearl and
Yeah.
everything. But dude, man, it was so cool. They actually eventually added submarines to the game,
Oh man.
and submarines did some pretty cool shit. That's the number one. Fuck, why doesn't this still exist? Game for me.
Well, everybody has that, right? Where you're like, oh man, I wish that they still sort of printed this, or wish it was still popular. I wish that there was like a community that could still play it. Like some of these games, they might not be in print anymore, but it's one of those games that if there was a community playing them, if I can go on every Saturday, it's like, oh, this place has a community that plays this every Saturday at 4 p.m. Like I'd be there. Like
Yeah.
for Star Wars CCG, if there was a group of like 6 to 8 people who played, I would still be there playing this game every goddamn weekend because it's so good, or it was so enjoyable at the
Yeah.
time. But
We used to have there used to be a crew that played HeroClix that I was a part of, but eventually what happened was the group was small enough that we knew everybody, we knew what everybody played.
yeah,
And then the events would happen where the store would get special packs
hmm
of HeroClix and event stuff. And the whole point of it was, oh, here's a super rare piece. The judge of the event gets one automatically, right? That's their like payment.
yeah,
And then first place gets one. That was like the whole thing. So here's
Right.
these two super rare pieces. Judge gets one. First place gets one. Well, we only ever had two judges who knew the game enough where they felt comfortable kind of running the whole show. They were really good friends because it's a small community. So people would show up. They would basically decide, okay, whatever X person, you're going to be the judge for the event. Here's your special piece. Cool. Go handle like matchmaking or whatever we'll play. And over the like months of us playing, eventually a new person showed up who wasn't involved in the community at all. And about halfway through the tournament, they're like, wait a minute. Like, why am I playing against this person? Like, I should have way more points than this.
right,
They've only won one game, I've won 3. Like, there's,
Yeah.
a matchmaking disparity. And it kind of came out over the course of that night and lots of arguing that over the past X amount of months, the judges, the two guys, had been fixing the matches so that they always got the two pieces no matter what.
Oh, that's bogus.
So they
Some
would
drama in the HeroClix community.
Dude, it was like the dumbest thing. You're fighting over a fucking piece of plastic that you could buy online for like $10. So that basically crumbled that entire like community. So nobody ever played anymore.
Well, once the integrity's gone, even though it's a tight knit community, right? Like 4 to 6 people probably,
Right.
or is it less than that? Yeah. So
I think the most we ever had was like 10.
yeah, and that's still awesome. But as soon as you sort of figure out, it's like that. It's just fucking. It's bogus from the inside out. You don't even want to show up anymore.
Right.
And well, that fucking sucks. But dude, if ever it happens where I'm in, where are you at Vegas?
Yeah, Vegas. Yeah.
If I'm in Vegas we're playing HeroClix and
Yes.
wherever the hell we are. That is totally happening.
We'll just go buy a brick.
Oh, and that's it. Bricks. They were called bricks.
They're called bricks, yeah.
Yes, bricks. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, definitely, man. We'll have to do that. But in other news that happened over the past week, I guess jumping into like the main event, as it were, Magic Fest Vegas, featuring GP Vegas, both modern and limited. Somewhat drama filled. A few things happened during the event. I went. I was there Friday and Saturday, and it was massive. There's so many people, so many than last year. And one of the big things, I think, if you saw it on Twitter, there was this thing called the Command Zone, and you play Commander, right?
I do play Commander, not regularly, but I do play Commander on occasion. Yes.
Yeah. So they had this space called the Command Zone where you had to pay to get in. It was reserved space only for those who paid, and it was basically a entire section. It had to have been at least 200 people. Like it could have it had to at least sit like 200 people.
Okay. I saw pictures of people. Like I saw a picture. I forgot who it was. It might have been Adamant MTG. He posted a picture of the quote unquote command zone, like where and all it was like
all the orange tables.
Yeah, it was like orange tables, and it was just kind of like not curtained off, but you had like these railings with curtains on them or something that just sort of fenced it off, right? Yeah. Yeah,
it was fenced off. You could walk in. I walked in to hang out with Adamant and hang out with Asian Avenger, and but basically it was a space for Commander players to be able to play, pick up games, their tournaments, their events, or whatever, without being told to move.
Okay.
One of the big things at tournaments is like a Commander game can start up at a table, and EDH games can go on for a fucking hour. Well, here comes Judge with 8 players ready to draft, going like, pick up your shit and move. Like, you gotta go.
Yeah,
like, we're running a tournament here. Like, move out of the way. So that was kind of what that was for. Was here's your space, play your games, have fun. You pick up games, play in tournaments. They even had a section for competitive EDH, like off to the side. So if you were like a hyper competitive person, like that was your area. Everything else was like friendly games.
Right.
But I thought that was super cool, and I don't know if it necessarily needed to be like pay to enter. Like, I thought that was kind of weird as somebody walking around going like, well shit, like my friend's in there. I didn't pay to go into this command zone.
How much was it?
I think it was like $100.
What?
Yeah, you got like some VIP badge or whatever. And you were entered into all their events. The big thing, here's why you had to pay. You got a foil promo Soul Ring.
Okay.
That at the end of the weekend, I remember vendors were selling it for like $200.
Okay, so in that case, you're getting your quote unquote money's worth.
You technically got your money back. You're paying for a Soul Ring,
right, to
go in, but they were checking badges at like the front little banner thing. So I walked around the back. I just moved one of the gates and like walked in.
Just careful, you might get amazed like what happened to him.
That's the other thing that happened over that weekend. Obviously, like I wasn't there. We only have the one person side, and it's some extreme drama that happened. Lamaze getting DQ'd from the tournament, or whatever tournament he was in. I think he was in the limited GP or whatever. But as a former judge, I can tell you, yes, the play area is off limits. Mm-hmm. In between those tables, there is enough for like one person, and that's about it. Like, you can't be spectating a friend or anything. Like, you can't really be passing through unless you're going to or from pairings or results. Mm-hmm. Like, that's really about it. So, the fact that he was told, like, no, you can't come through here, he should have just said, okay, like, turned around and gone the other way. But obviously, like, we only have Amaze's side to this, and judges aren't going to say anything, obviously. I think it was it was wrong to out that judge by name, because it's a little, I don't know. Let me get your opinion on this. Like, are judges at a tournament, should they be considered a high authority figure? Like,
Well, there always needs to be a final say in any scenario, especially when there is, and this is why they're judges, is because they have to have the final the final authoritative say on any particular disputed play, and they have that authority because apparently or whatnot. I don't know what the situation is going to be moving forward, but they have the proper certification to make these calls in those scenarios because they're judging an event where they have all the necessary knowledge to do so, and they need to figure it out and make the call. I've called on judges in small tournaments at my LGS. A lot of the people who work there are level 1 or level 2 judges. So when I call them and I'm like, I thought it's bang, bang, bang. And then he's like, no, it's bang, bang, bang because of these reasons. And I'm like, oh, fuck, see, I would never have thought of that. And I thought I understood the rules, but thank you for that. So does it, like, should they be viewed upon as like authorities? Well, like, or what? Like, I'm not sure what kind of what you're trying to get at.
So what I mean by is like the part of, and of course, like I'm somewhat paraphrasing here because I don't know exactly everything. All I have is Amaz's part of it. According to Amaz, like this judge did not have a name badge on him, and he makes it seem like part of the reason why it was escalated to a DQ was that he asked the name of the judge.
Right.
And it was almost treated like you don't get to ask me my name. Like, I have on a judge shirt, I am a judge in this event, you have to listen to me type of situation, which I've met some judges that are like that. Absolutely. Yeah. I've met some that are the complete opposite. So, right. And I know the head judge of that event, and he's an extremely nice person. So there's a lot of discrepancies from like what is said to have happened versus like who I know there type of thing. Obviously, like I didn't see what happened, I wasn't there, type of thing. So, but that's just it's one of those things where it's like this idea that you're not allowed to question ever a person in a judge shirt at an event. Like, okay,
well, so here's the fact. Okay, there's like you said, there's really only one side that has been come to light in that much detail when Amaz posted that tweet, and I thought it was kind of ridiculous that A, it's that big of a deal, and B, I mean, when a streamer gets DQ'd from something, it's immediately, especially in Magic, anytime that someone's caught with something weird and screwy in Magic, everybody starts to immediately crush their hopes and dreams and think that they're, fucking CCG Hitler or whatever. But
it's true.
So, but in this case, there's two parts to it. Number one, it's that from the point of view of the judge, first of all, it's like, these are the rules. You have to abide by the rules. I don't give a fuck who you are. Now, does that come with a whole stance of, oh my God, that's Amaz, I'm going to fucking totally, I'm going to totally big shot Amaz here and tell him to go fuck himself because because I can do that. But at the same time, it's like, he's like, you don't have a name badge. What's your name? Him saying, I don't need to tell you my name. These are the fucking rules. Like, I can see where the judge is coming from that, where it's like, my name is not an issue here. It's the fact that this is the rules in black and white, and right. You're not above them, so go follow the fucking rules. And this is a lot of what culture is today, where a lot of it becomes people who don't know when they're being the right kind of challenge to unreasonable authority, or when they're just being
entitled.
Trying to be entitled or trying to be a hero. Like, there's a subreddit that I just recently discovered like a couple weeks ago called "Am I Being Detained?" where it's a lot of people that are getting it's people who are being spoken to by police for completely rational reasons, and they're filming and they're trying to make a fucking statement about how bad the police are but it's like The police officer is there saying, "This is a crime scene. You cannot get this close to the crime scene." Am I being detained? No, asshole. You're just too close to the fucking crime scene.
Oh,
It's
I'm
like,
sorry. I thought this was America.
yeah, exactly. Oh, I thought this was, and they're like, exactly, like totally Randy Marshing it. But the whole point is that in that case, it's like there's the people who are just trying to challenge authority because it's cool to challenge authority, despite the fact that the rules are justified and has nothing to do with it. It's like, what's your badge number? I doesn't fucking matter. You can't be this close to the, oh, I got a cop on tape saying he doesn't have to give me his badge number. It's like, no, that's not the point. The point is that the rule is very simple and black and white. And the fact that you think that you're better than the rule has nothing to do with my name or not, or the fact that you're not following along with it.
Yeah.
And again, on the same time as the judge is that much of a big deal where he's like, just tell him your name. At the, like, I think that they were both kind of, they literally were, they both fucking walked up to a match and said, well, here's my fucking gasoline. Well, here's my gasoline. Well, fuck you and fuck you. And that was essentially it. They literally busted out super soakers full of fucking like jet fuel and started dousing themselves in it. And this is what happened. And it was kind of ridiculous because I'm watching this pyro show and I'm like, this is ridiculous.
It was pretty ridiculous. But like, I can tell you from like former judge experience, like DQs are not just fucking handed out. Like, if I am a floor judge at a tournament, right? My job is to make sure players are in their seats, pairings go up properly, players are not crossing the play area, like answering judge calls on the floor as much as I can, right? As a floor judge, I cannot disqualify a person.
Okay.
That I cannot.
You escalate it, correct?
Unless like I watch a player just punch somebody. Like if I watch a player like flip the table, punch somebody, start screaming and like running around, like,
well, on like the 19th Nexus, that sometimes that does cross my mind.
Like, yes, all right, let's disqualify this player and get them out of the room. But yeah, it cannot be. It has to be escalated to whatever judge is above you, handling your area, and then eventually to the head judge of the tournament, who I believe for Channel Fireball is Ricky Hayashi, who is a super nice person. I've met many times, and he hates doing it. Like his most number one hated thing is disqualifying players.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it strikes me as odd that this DQ was just handed out for like moving a judge out of the way, which I'm pretty sure it was like, fuck, get out of the way. Like, I'm trying to come through here.
Yeah.
But like I said, we only obviously have the one side of it, not the other side. We're never going to get the other side of it. You know, it's a clusterfuck of stuff that could have just been easily handled with, sorry, I'll go around. Yeah,
and I mean, when you're trying to picture this interaction in your mind, where the one guy says, "No, you can't pass over here," and from
it's just Gandalf.
Yeah, well, like in my head, I just like, to me, the way that it was sort of painted on that Twitter post was that this guy was like 6'9" and Amaz is like 4'3", and he's like, let me just sneak under your legs and go, and go to my hobbit hole. But no, that's not what happened.
I've met Amaz. The dude's tall.
Is he?
Yes.
Okay, well, see, that's the other thing.
He's not tiny.
Well, and I don't know these things, right? I've never met the guy. To me, I mean, and I'm sure that it was in a narrow aspect. So when he tries to, like, to him, or to me, what I'm seeing is that Amaz was like, listen, yeah, whatever. It's a stupid rule. I just got to get over there. And as he's doing that, he's trying to wedge past him to get there. And if you're a judge, you're like, fuck you. Like, no, you're not going. And then there's contact, and then eventually it becomes a whole fucking thing.
Right.
And I'm sure that it was not anywhere close to as graceful as Amaz wrote it to be, nor was Amaz as fucking aggressive as I'm sure the judge felt he was being either. It's just a stupid thing that happened. That's hilarious.
Was your high school like super crowded?
Yeah, actually, it was pretty populated.
Trying to get to class.
Oh, yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Just like trying to just shove your way past people with a backpack on, like just trying to get to where you need to go. You're going to push people out of the way. But like I said, it could have easily just been, sorry, I'll go around. But like I said, I wasn't there. You weren't there. The only people who were there were around Amaz and the judge. Like whatever.
Yeah.
End of the story. Amaz was DQ'd, which is not a light thing, and is not just handed to somebody going, "Well, you touched the judge."
But how does that come down to that being like if this is something that is not always, for instance, like you said, if this is something that is tried to is the last resort, how does it go through all these checks and balances of people and discussion, and if it's so hard or it's so unlikely for DQs to occur, how does it get to that point where someone's literally like, well, it was a misunderstanding and he bumped into the guy. Like, did they, if they spoke to the people involved and got their sides of the story, how does it come down to it where someone was like, again, like, it just seems really fucked. Like there's either something that wasn't told. I have no fucking idea. I was not there.
Right.
But like, did someone drop like a fucking racial slur in the middle of this where like there's someone's not, you know?
What tends to happen with this stuff is like, so say I'm the floor judge. Right, I'm the floor judge. Somebody tries to scoot past me when I tell them not to. They initiate contact with me, push me out of the way, whatever. Like, I'm now going to issue you an unsportsmanlike minor, like, for not listening when I told you can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can't just issue it to you and then you go away. Like, I'm going to tell you to go away. I'm going to walk to the judge booth, whoever the judge overseeing me is. I'm going to tell him, hey, this is the player. This is the infraction. If that judge now says, well, wait a minute, like, that's not small. Like, we need to get the player over here. We need to find out what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Amaz actually, like, mentioned that in his post, right? That
yeah, he went there over. And they spoke. They talked about it, including, like, witnesses that were there that went to go explain what happened.
That's a normal thing that will happen. Now, according to, obviously, Amaz's post, that's when he asked for the judge's name. And, like, say you ask for my name. If the judge who's above me says, well, that would be escalating it to, like, another portion of this whole thing, like, where you're going to get the head judge involved, you're now trying to get me in trouble, right? Like, I am now, as the floor judge, I'm out of it. It is out of my hands at this point.
Right.
There's nothing I can do. So it is now with the head judge and whatever coordinator. So that's the whole thing, is like the judge who issued the original infraction, it was removed from their hands almost immediately. So the DQ being handed down is the head judge talking to whoever and deciding, okay, this is a severe enough penalty. We need this player removed from the venue. Like, type of situation. Whether or not it was, like, you know, it could have been a shove, could be saying something stupid, whatever the case is, like, that's what happened, and that's how that gets handed down. It's not some simple, it's not something simple of, like, I have a grudge against you for shoving me. No, like, I can't do anything. It gets taken out of my hands almost immediately.
Okay.
And then and then DQs don't end there. That's the big thing. The DQs aren't like, okay, we're done, you're out, like, and that's the end of it. Now a DQ gets handed to the, well, shit, I don't even know if it gets handled this way anymore because of the Judge Academy thing, but it would be handed to a board, regional coordinators, who then decide whether or not you get banned.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I had a friend banned for 9 months for telling the judge that his pants were more expensive than the grand prize. I shit you not.
Well, what kind of pants were they? Like,
I'm pretty sure they're Gucci jeans, but like, literally that happened. That he, like, it was a question of, he filled out the match slip incorrectly. Mm-hmm. Him and his opponent were called up. They were asked separately who won. They both answered the other person. Like.
Oh, so they weren't even saying I won. It was he won.
No, they both agreed. Like, my friend said he lost. The other dude said he won.
Okay,
that was correct, but the slip was reversed.
Oh, okay, I understand.
It was just a mistake. And they were trying to get my friend, like, they were questioning him, and his answer was, if I forge that match slip, I win $50. what do I give a shit? My pants are worth 400. And he was DQ'd on the spot. Like,
wow, that
and then
power
banned.
trippy.
And then banned for like 6 months. Shout outs to Reggie.
Reggie, the pants legend.
Yeah, so it was just like it's so weird when it comes to like judge situations. Individual judges handle things differently. So like you can't take a post from Twitter going like, "Yep, I understand the whole situation. I can now make a confident analysis of what happened and point out the person who's wrong." Like you just can't. Like each person handles it differently, and that's just kind of the end of that. It was a really stupid thing that again could have just been handled by saying, "Sorry, I'll go around."
Yeah. No, I feel you.
That wasn't the only drama moment for Magic Fest Vegas.
What is this? This is like this is amazing. It's like reality TV.
Dude, there was some shit.
Hit me. I'm totally on board. I want to hear it.
Did you see the old school tournament post?
Oh.
Yeah.
This is the one. Okay, so this was what I was referencing when I said that when one person makes a slight mistake, everybody immediately thinks that they're CCG Hitler. This had to do with the old school one in an extra circle of protection red, correct?
Yes. Against the mono red player.
Do it. Hit it. Just for those who don't know, I want you to explain it.
So for those who have no idea what happened, at Magic Fest Vegas, there was an old school tournament. Old school tournament is you can only play cards that were legal from 93 to 94 with a specific ban list. So you can play Power, but it's restricted to 1. But you can't play anything that was printed past 1994. So it's a fun tournament for people who enjoy vintage Magic without it being vintage Magic. And one of the person who won is like a large name in Magic's history, Wiseman, and he won with it's called The Deck. It's a very old combo deck. It's been printed in Magic. Like I have a book called Decade, which talks about 10 years of Magic decks, and that was like the first one to pop up as like The Deck. And he's been piloting this for the past 20 something years.
What is this deck? Just real quick. Like I know nothing of the deck, so explain briefly what it is.
I can't even explain it properly, but it's a very old school combo deck. That it's kind of mixed between it used to just win like a Sarah Angel, but then became a combo deck later on. I don't remember exactly how it wins, but it is a combo deck. I think it has something to do with like force field, but in any case, I'll find out exactly how it wins.
Yeah.
But what happened was this person won the tournament, and earlier in the tournament, somebody had posted a picture of them playing against Weissman in the middle of him comboing off, and the post was very like celebratory of the. I get to play against one of the essential grandfathers of Magic, and here's this cool picture of him comboing off. Now what happened later on, once Wiseman had won, they posted a picture of his deck and his deck list. His deck in the sideboard had 1 Circle of Protection Red. Circle of Protection Red, for anybody who doesn't know, is an enchantment that says you can prevent 1 source of red damage to you for 1 mana. So essentially it just locks out like a source of red damage. Very good against red decks. And this picture that this person posted, in the picture you can see clearly across the board from her that Weissman has 2 Circle of Protection Reds in play. And she happened to be playing mono red goblins. So best card against them. He's got 2 of them.
Yeah.
But in his final list that he showed, there was only 1 Circle of Protection Red in the sideboard. So this whole thing blew up of, well, wait a minute. Like your winning list, you show 1 COP red, but in this picture of you playing in the tournament, you clearly have 2. What the hell? Like what happened? And of course, like this isn't a sanctioned tournament. These aren't like not for mass amounts of money. I think it was for like I don't know, like $50 in like winning tickets or whatever it was. It was just for the fun of the game. And like the Weissman's response was, we didn't do deck lists, there are no deck checks. The picture I gave the person running the tournament was of an old list of mine because I didn't want people to know what I'm playing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
like
I only know of the Twitter follow-up because this kind of became a giant shitstorm on Twitter when, again, everything essentially hits the fan when it gets to Reddit, and then Reddit kind of shredded it, and then that went to Twitter, and eventually Twitter was like, right, your explanation is bullshit. Not that people are doing any investigative journalism on their own. It's just that, well, it looks bad, so therefore it's bad, and you're a bad person.
Right.
You are CCG Hitler for this week, kind of thing.
Forgetting all the good that Weissman has done for the game.
Correct.
Like forgetting how awesome he's been in, the history of Magic.
So in which case, and this is what some of the comments I saw where it's like, I can't believe you cheated for like 100 tickets, or
it was
Magic
like nothing.
Tickets. Yeah, and at the same regard, you can kind of use that as a counter argument to like, well, why would he cheat?
Right.
Why would he put his reputation on the line for 100 tickets, given the fact that he's playing with a deck probably that is worth in itself several thousands of dollars, if not way more, like more. 10, like a $10,000 deck that he's just shuffling around like it's nobody's business. Yeah. What the fuck does he care about going over there and picking up a box of Ravnica Allegiance or whatever? Like no one gives a shit. That said, he gave his explanation, and people, it's not up to him to satisfy them. All he has to do is give his explanation. Hopefully it's truthful, but I mean, a lot of the time the burden of proof is on those trying to prove him wrong, right? For the most part, I'm not sure how it really functions. In internet justice, the burden of proof is always on the person being accused versus those who are doing the accusing.
Well, the biggest thing for me was like I was reading the thread, I'm like, who gives a shit? The reality of the situation was, it was an old picture that he sent. They obviously, that you can tell from the picture of the winning list, that was not taken at the event. That was clearly like a fucking shitty cell phone camera, like taken and sent in of, here's my list.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he could have easily said, no, that's an old picture. Sorry, here's my actual list that I played. And that literally would have been the end of it. But for whatever reason, it was this idea of like, well, there were no deck lists and there are no deck checks, so who gives a shit? And now they're talking about, for future old school tournaments, doing deck lists and having deck checks and having a judge
for something that's supposed to be kind of like a sideshow, kind of like
something that's for the celebration of the game, of the original sets in 93 to 94.
It's kind of ridiculous / hilarious.
It's so fucking weird, dude. Like,
but and that's the thing. It's that when something looks fishy, it's automatically the tinfoil hats, scenario where people are just going to jump on it and think that it's obviously the worst. Because it's fun to think that things are the worst, and it's fun to sort of tear down these, these monoliths, these idols of the game, and just say like, fucking, we got him. Like, we got him. And after all these years, we nailed him because of one extra circle of protection red, but fuck him. We got him. He's the worst human being ever. Like, if you read some of the Twitter comments in response, like, there's some vile shit going on.
I try not to.
Well, you kind of get caught in that rabbit hole where I caught
wind of this. Keep scrolling.
Well, no shit. I'm like, someone's got to come to this guy's aid. Like, someone's got to actually come in and be like, you know what? People make fucking mistakes. And even if, like, I don't suspect he's lying. I probably think it was true. But at the same time, like, I don't know. Like, to me, the hole in his argument is why he was so secretive and protective of a deck list that meant nothing in the first place. Like, I didn't want anybody to find out about this list. Well, motherfucker, you're not going for the world championship here. You're in the equivalent of a fucking hot dog eating contest at a Magic card game. Like, right? That's what it is. Yeah. It's the 4th of July and you're the guy eating the fucking, having a pie eating contest while everyone else is, playing for the World Series. Like, you're just, that's what it is. And it's fun and it's cool and it's awesome. But at the same time, why are you going to such great ends? Like, you're not if it was like, for instance, if it was me and this was my only shot at any type of glory, yeah, I'd fucking study up and go. But this is a guy, this is a legend of the game, right? This is a
Yeah.
guy who has been there since the beginning, who has established himself as an architect of what Magic is today. So
Right. Yeah, it's just, it was all around, it was just a bad look for the whole thing. And I think the funniest part of the whole thing was one line that I read, I'm pretty sure it was on Twitter, was, well, it wouldn't be an old school Magic tournament without cheating. So
I hear that a lot too. It's like,
dude, there were some of the OGs of the game. Ooh.
Bad cheaters?
Oh, insane.
What's like the worst cheating that you've ever, maybe not caught wind of right away, but that you've heard of like a popular player? You don't have to name names or anything, but like something that you know, it's like, this guy was known to fucking pull this move
Mike
all
Long.
the time. Oh wow, that was fast. Okay, I didn't actually want to. I didn't need a name, but
no, it literally, like, he is the epitome of like old school Magic. Like, was great at the game, still cheated a ton.
What was his like? What did he have? Like a go-to?
He hid cards on his chair.
Oh,
like,
really?
Yeah, and he would just pick them back up. Like, he played a combo deck called Frostbloom, which required very specific cards to combo off. It was one of the first sort of storm decks where you just made a shitload of mana and you played a card called Drain. I think it was called Drain Life. And you just killed your opponent in one shot. Well, he would always just have Drain Life in his, like, under his chair. So, like, he would just, like, eventually find the pieces that made all the mana and, like, shuffle his cards, like, oh, Drain Life you. Like, I had it the whole time. You know, there's so many examples of large name players cheating at the game, or not even like what do we call it as judging? It's like you were caught cheating, but it wasn't intentional until you realized you could gain an advantage, type of thing.
Right.
Like one of my kind of idols of the game, Tomohiro Saito, like, he was banned for a year for cheating, and his cheating was stalling. That's all he did.
Stalling, as in, explain.
Like, so he was at a GP. He had won game one. This was during Jace the Mind Sculptor's era.
Okay.
Jace the Mind Sculptor, extremely powerful Magic card. If you think you hate Teferi now, you would have really hated Jace the Mind Sculptor. But Saito was up one game, and they were going really low on time on game two. And he was clearly losing the game. Like, his opponent had a Jace in play, and Saito kept picking up the Jace and reading it. Picking up the Jace and reading it. Picking up the Jace and reading it. Turn after turn after turn after turn. Trying to just drain time off the clock. Because if it goes to time, and then it goes to turns, and once the turns are over, if Saito's still up one game, he wins the whole match.
Right. So,
yeah, he was fucking DQ'd for stalling and then banned for cheating.
Yeah.
Came back after his banning and just immediately crushed, like, tournaments again. Like,
that's an interesting tactic in itself, because is it cheating? It's not cheating, it's just unsportsmanlike. Because cheating would essentially infer that he is doing something outside of the rules. Now, again, if the rules state that you have only X amount of time per turn to do what you have to do, or you can only read a card twice in its existence.
You have 3 minutes.
Oh, per turn?
Yeah.
Okay, so now in this case, you can really milk the clock, because you have
up to 3 minutes.
If you have 3 minutes a turn, I could literally just wait till the 2:59 and say your turn.
Pass you turn. Could. And then, like, but it's not like a rule written into Magic where it says a player has 3 minutes to make a play. It is, you have to make a play within a reasonable time. If you have no cards in hand and you're sitting there thinking, like, sorry, like, you're stalling at that point.
Right.
But, if you're a control player and you're trying to decide, like, order of doing something, you're sitting there thinking, like, yeah, you have a couple minutes to try and decide what to do.
Right.
But it's up to judge discretion to decide whether or not slow play is happening. And slow play starts off as a verbal warning, gets written down, then it gets upgraded to a GRV, which is a game rule violation, which can then get upgraded to game loss, match loss, DQ. So,
Okay.
If a player is throughout the tournament constantly slow playing, constantly stalling, then it can eventually upgrade to a disqualification and banning. But this one was such an egregious, like, it's fucking Jace the Mind Sculpt. We've been playing with this card for 6 months. It's the #1 most played card in the format.
You're like, we all know what
you're picking up and reading it. Yeah, it's like picking up Llanowar Elf and reading it. Like, what does this do?
What is it? It taps for what exactly?
Oh yeah,
green mana, motherfucker. Green mana. It is just a fucking. It's a forest with a face and knives. That's what it is. Fuck's sake.
So that was pretty much like the eventfulness of Magic Fest Vegas, and then of course immediately after the banning of Hoag on Monday, which was not a surprise I think to anybody. Although the surprise of the banning was Faithless Looting got hit. I was not expecting that.
I'm not. Yeah, see, I'm not very familiar with those formats, so you got to sort of fill in terms of that. I mean, like I know that Hoag got hit and Frostie got back into play. All the other stuff, I wasn't all that.
So
to me, it was just
the big thing.
Language.
The big part of that BNR, like the Hoag banning, was pretty much known was going to happen. I said they would not ban it. I didn't think they would actually ban it. I think they would hit something else instead. But they hit they hit Faithless Looting. They hit Faithless Looting sort of off the cuff. And all it is, it's 1 mana, draw 2, discard 2. Then you can flash it back for 3. Flashback is you get to play it from your graveyard. Okay. But Faithless Looting fed graveyard strategies. And Faithless Looting is a big part of a number of different decks, including Hoag. You're talking about Storm. There's Mono Red is playing it. Phoenix is playing it. Like it's everywhere. It is a card that immediately goes into 4x of any deck playing red. And if you're playing a deck that plays off the graveyard, you are essentially going, okay, I'm adding 4x Faithless Looting into my deck from the start.
And what color was this card?
It's red.
Okay, so you're playing, and I could just see it's like a better Tormenting Voice if you're playing out of your graveyard or playing something like that, right?
Yeah, actually, okay. And you know, it's just a card that everybody from the beginning of Modern said this should go away. So, and then the other one was they unbanned Stoneforge Mystic, which is now up to $75. I think was what I showed last night. So it started off the week at like 30.
So big investment for those people. I know that my my foil Ferocidon is now back in play. Got that trusty bastard like right next to me at all times, just staring at me, saying maybe one day. But I'm like, no, your time is now. Yeah, I told myself I wouldn't play Paper Standard until rotation, but we're gonna see what's going on. I know Monday going to my LGS to do all day drafting, so can't wait to do that.
Poggers, fucking poggers. Yeah. Well, all right, man. I think that's going to do it for this week. Next week, we are going to have to go over some of the big things happening on Arena, namely the historic announcement this week. And
yes,
that's going to be an entire show all on its own. We're going to have a lot to talk about when it comes to the historic format and that economy and everything.
So let me ask you this: between now and I guess Friday when we record and we plan on talking, because we actually wanted to talk about it today, but we got into
a couple tangents.
Others. Yeah, just a few. Do you think they will revert or change by the time we record it, or do you think it'll still be the same as it is right now, which is 2-to-1 wildcard conversion rate?
By the time we record, it will be the same, but it will never make it to implementation.
Okay, well, we can talk about that next week, but I just wanted to get the prediction down and recorded right now. I think the same as you. I think that it'll stay intact, and we can talk about it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man.
For sure. All right, man. Well, before we go, let's do some shout-outs. My man, Flake, hit us with the shout-outs.
All righty. Well, I am going to shout out today from the chat, Captain Perk, who made so many Canadian related jokes and such. So I see you, I love you, and I will probably not change the way I speak. And other than that, I want to say thanks to everybody for watching and listening. And you can catch me on Twitch at twitch.tv/WatchFlake, or on Twitter at WatchFlake as well. And yeah, I play me some card games. So that's what I want to say. And of course, I want to shout out to my handsome co-host Frostie.
My man. Thank you so much. Of course, you guys are watching it here on my channel, twitch.tv/FrostieHS. I'll be continuing streaming tonight, jumping onto Arena. Flake, are you going to be jumping onto your own stream later?
No, not this morning. I think I'm going to be sort of, I have some adult beverages that I'd like to enjoy, and I might go ahead and play some like first-person shooter stuff, and eat some junk food and probably go to bed as a grown man. That's how it's going to happen.
All right. Well, cheers, my man. Thank you guys all so much for watching, for listening. Of course, you can find it on YouTube and on Spotify if you've missed anything. Thanks all again, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace out.